September 1972, Marcos declared martial law, claiming that it was the last defense against the rising disorder caused by increasingly violent student demonstrations. The alleged threats of communist insurgency by the new Communist Party of the Philippines, CTP, and the Muslim separatist movement of the Moro National Liberation Front, MNLF. One of his first actions was to arrest opposition politicians in Congress and the Constitutional Convention. Initial public reaction to martial law was mostly favorable, except in Muslim areas of the South, where a separatist rebellion, led by the MNLF, broke out in 1973. Despite half-hearted attempts to negotiate a ceasefire, the rebellion continued to claim thousands of military and civilian casualties. Communist insurgency expanded with the creation of the National Democratic Front, NDF, an organization embracing the CPP and other communist groups. For under martial law, the regime was able to reduce violent urban crime, collect unregistered firearms, and suppress communist insurgency in some areas. At the same time, a series of important new concessions were given to foreign investors, including a prohibition on strikes by organized labor, and a land reform program was launched. In January 1973, Marcos proclaimed the ratification of a new constitution based on the parliamentary system, with himself as both president and prime minister. He did not, however, convene the interim legislature that was called for in that document. General disillusionment with martial law and with the consolidation of political and economic control by Marcos, his family, and close associates grew during the 1970s. Despite growth in the country's gross national product, workers' real income dropped. Few farmers benefited from land reform, and the sugar industry was in confusion. The precipitous drop in sugar prices in the early 1980s, coupled with lower prices and less demand for coconuts and coconut products, traditionally the most important export commodity, added to the country's economic woes. The government was forced to borrow large sums from the international banking community. Also troubling to the regime, reports of widespread corruption began to surface with increasing frequency. Elections for an interim National Assembly were finally held in 1978. The opposition, of which the primary group was led by the jailed former Senator Benigno Aquino Jr., produced such a bold and popular campaign that the official results, which gave Marcos's opposition virtually no seats, were widely believed to have been illegally altered. In 1980, Aquino was allowed to go into exile in the United States, and the following year, after announcing the suspension of martial law, Marcos won a virtually uncontested election for a new 6-year term. The downfall of Marcos and return of democratic government. The assassination of Benigno Aquino, as he returned to Manila in August 1983, was generally thought to have been the work of the military. It became the focal point of a renewed and more heavily supported opposition to Marcos's rule. By late 1985, Marcos, under mounting pressure both inside and outside the Philippines, called a snap presidential election for February 1986. Corazon Aquino, Benigno's widow, became the candidate of a coalition of opposition parties. Marcos was declared the official winner, but strong public outcry over the election results precipitated a revolt that by the end of the month had driven Marcos from power. Aquino then assumed the presidency. Aquino's great personal popularity and widespread international support were instrumental in establishing the new government. Shortly after taking office, she abolished the Constitution of 1973 and began ruling by decree. A new constitution was drafted and was ratified in February 1987, in a general referendum, legislative elections in May 1987, and the convening of a new bicameral Congress in July marked the return of the form of government that had been present before the imposition of martial law in 1972.
1 millimeter short of my aorta. Ang sabi ng mga doktor, kung yun just so much as touch your aorta, patay ka na. So I missed death by only 1 millimeter.
Marcos, President of the Philippines, by virtue of the powers vested upon me by Article 7, Section 10, Paragraph 2 of the Constitution, do hereby suspend the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus.
Was solved, I think, was the bombing in the so-called Joe's department store. And it was traced to someone in the Philippine Constabulary in Camp Crame.
On August 26, 1971, members of the New People's Army raided a tactical command post in Isabela, destroying 2 AFP helicopters.
Bukod kay Senador Aquino, ang pangunahing pinagbibintangan ni Marcos sa nangyari sa Plaza Miranda ay ang Communist Party of the Philippines o CPP na pinamumunuan ni Jose Maria Sison. Isinilang ang CPP noong 1968 sa araw pagkatapos ng Pasko. Pagkaraan ng 3 buwan, itinatag nito ang isang armadong grupo, ang New People's Army o NPA. Kabilang sa mga nagbuo ng NPA ang ilang dating HUK, mga miyembro ng Hukbong Mapagpalaya ng Pilipinas, isang grupo ng mga armadong rebelde na nakabase sa Central Luzon. Isa sa mga rebeldeng ito si Bernabe Buscaino, lalong kilala sa bansag na Commander Dante.
Noong panahon na yun, lahat yata ng nangyayari biniblame sa amin, no? Noong nga panahon na yun, nagagalit kami at nag-iisip, sino kaya itong gumagawa ng ganitong intriga? Iniisip namin, merong nagpapaaway. Marami kami pinaghihinalaan. Pinakamalapit na may tuturo mo si ang mga grupo ni Marcos,
Sa kalaunan, pati ang kalikasan ay tila nagbigay kay Marcos ng dahilan para ideklara ang emergency rule. Noong Hulyo at Agosto 1972, isang napakalakas na bagyo ang lumikha ng baha sa Central Luzon at sumira sa mga palayan doon. Napilitan ng gobyerno na umangkat ng halos 250,000 tonelada ng bigas mula sa ibang bansa. Tumaas ng todo-todo ang presyo ng bilihin. Muli, naglabasan sa kalsada ang mga estudyante para iprotesta ang pagtaas ng mga presyo.
Narito ang ating konstitusyon, ang saligan ng ating mga pag-asa.
Samantala, namumuo ang iba pang klaseng kaguluhan sa Constitutional Convention o CONCON. Inihalal ang CONCON para palitan ng 1935 Constitution na ginawa pa noong panahong ang Pilipinas ay isang kolonya ng Estados Unidos. Dahil sa pagmamaniobra ng mga delegadong maka-Marcos, hindi nabigyan ng sapat na atensyon ng mga reformang panlipunan at pang-ekonomiya. Sa halip, ang napagbuhusan ng panahon ay ang mga panukalang palitan ang sistema ng gobyerno mula sa presidensyal tungo sa parlamentaryo. Ang napagtuunan ng pansin ay si Marcos.
This was the great desire of our forebears, their one vision, their one dream, the dream of freedom. And today, at last,